I'm just going to start by saying I love you guys, and I'm just glad to be here. And I'm always learning. Um, I say I'm 65 and I'm still thriving. So anyway, got a lot to learn from everybody. I guess a lot of my life has been around working with the military, quality of life for the military, um, environmental and social justice, those kind of things. I was in the federal government for a long time. I was in consulting for a much longer time. I volunteer a lot. Uh, yeah, one of the things I do is I kind of help coordinate this national ad hoc committee that has been focusing on um, educating and celebrating and uniting the country by recognizing the contributions of African Americans in the military from all the way back to the Revolutionary War up to the present. And so last year was the 75th anniversary of two executive orders that President Truman signed back in 1948. One of them desegregated the federal government 75 years, now 76 years ago. The other one desegregated the military. And believe it or not, President Truman had a role, even though he was a segregationist, he had a role because he came around in actually promoting civil rights with these executive orders. So last year we put together a national ad hoc committee. I think it was about 180 people on it, probably representing about 50 organizations. And we celebrated around the country and educated around the country about the executive orders, the 75 years, working toward more integration. And it was all over the country. So we actually have a little video. It's not as professional as what you guys would do, but it's still about 18 minutes to cover from last year. So that's one of the things I do. I'm also involved in Crucial Conversations, which is another uh, very important cross section of the military that um, brings together many different voices, diverse voices on issues that are important to the military today. And then I'm on the board of Blue Star Families, which is all about quality of life for the military families. And I'm on some other boards and other things like that. But fundamentally, I'm here to try and leverage my network, make it available to you as you kind of think about the individuals that you want to highlight, the stories you want to tell, the resources you might need in order to tell these sorts of things. I've gotten to know Kevin over the last year or so, a little bit more. Brigadier General Terrence Adam is somebody I work with, and also General Bray, who is, I think, trying to get on the call. But does that help, Kevin? Just a little background?
It absolutely does, sir. Thank you. Appreciate that. What I'm going to do, Will, with the 5 minutes or less that you have available, I'm going to screen share and show
Yeah,
you what I have as the Venn diagram for this project. So
sure. And if it's helpful, I can pull up a little bit of list of the organizations, and I can sure to show you a map of what we did last year, if that's helpful. But yeah, I see this.
okay, so this is kind of where I believe I've got most of my firepower for
Hmm.
this project. This date here is not correct, but I'm going to send this out to everybody. But this is kind of a taxonomy of the partners. I have the UCLA Global Sports Forum. I don't think anybody on this call has participated except for Damone in this. It's a annual conclave of all the sports teams in Los Angeles, hosted by UCLA Sports Media Entertainment Management and Entertainment by one of my board members. But this is where I have done panels and workshops around the business of entertainment and the intersection of sports. So I plan on being able to take any of the assets that we put in the can and sharing and screening at this event. It's going to be the second week in October. Another event that I want to be able to try to share some of the things that we can do is for Juneteenth, which is coming up pretty soon in about a couple of weeks. Um, but these are the other dates that kind of connect with what we have as a way to stop all traffic, all attention 2 days of the year. Memorial Day is one of them. I don't have Veterans Day up here, but that's another day. So Memorial Day just passed. Victory by Valor doesn't really connect with Memorial Day in as much as it does, again, give some context to people who served. There's several people in Victory by Valor, the project, who were killed in action. But most of everything that I want to do is to focus on Veterans Day. Does anybody not know what Veterans Day is? Okay, Veterans Day is always November 11th, and it's a day that actually recognizes and gives every single person who served an opportunity for us to take a minute and salute those people who served, as well as the families who served with those folks, because I believe they're part of the story. So, in this taxonomy, I have another couple of things that you'll be able to click onto. For Love of Liberty was a film project that I was a producer on, executive producer, and I brought money from the Department of Defense. I also brought money from Ford Motor Company. General Motors was going to be involved, but they didn't have two lanes for two automobile manufacturers. So we had Ford Motor Company, U.S. Bank, the U.S. Army, and we also had escapes me who was the fourth. But this aired on PBS, on Public Broadcasting Service, and it was produced by a gentleman by the name of Frank Martin. I brought the money, and Maryland Public Broadcasting was the partner. It didn't air on the corporate public broadcasting system for national carriage. Oh, here's General Bray. Great. But this is kind of the taxonomy of things that you guys will be able to go to and take a look at all of our partners. So Dakar Foundation, this is the organization that you guys are part of. And these are some of the other partners or part of the list of folks that who can help to distribute and produce this thing. The NAACP, for Love of Liberty, received an award for the outstanding documentary in 2010. We've got folks in the Pentagon, the Los Angeles Regional Community College System, UCLA Memes, who does global sports. The UCLA Steam Engine is another project. And then we've got the Santa Monica College, which is a funder, and California State University Entertainment Alliance. These are two sources of income for you guys to work off of. So without further ado, I wanted to give you guys a chance to meet the person who's been most responsible for getting any of my passion and my assets either on air or socialized with most of the folks that I guess are going to be part of this diagram. General Bray, if you're able to let us see your face, if not, then your voice will be great.
Okay, I'm on.
Okay.
I don't know if you can see me or not, or how my face looks to you. I'm trying to look at your slide that you've got up, so I turned it to the side. Am I facing? Can you see me?
We see you, sir.
Okay.
Infidelity.
So who do I have on this net?
Okay, I want everybody to give a brief introduction of themselves, starting with Sergio.
Yes, sir. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we hear you. Over.
That was good. My name is Sergio Vicente, and I am I have been working in the entertainment industry for as a producer and an assistant director for the last about 3 years. Before that, I have since 2018, I have been a combat sports journalist as well as a political correspondent for publications like WGN, the Chicago Tribune, as well as the Chicago Reader. I am someone who is extremely diligent and looking forward to working in actually over the past year and a half. I have been working as a producer and assistant director for a documentary series on reparations funded by the state of California. So I am extremely passionate about telling stories. I'm extremely passionate about working within entertainment. And I look forward to working consistently with Dakar, as well as everyone here on this call. I said, anything else? I'm originally from Chicago. I live currently here in Los Angeles. And Yeah, thank you guys for your time. I look forward to meeting and working with you.
Okay, Josh Fort,
Hello, can you hear me?
we hear you, sir.
Yeah.
Young man.
My name is Joshua Fort. I'm a 20-year-old based out of Los Angeles, inspired creative director and fashion photographer. Um, I'm putting my talents to more project management and learning more of the different aspects, and yeah, just willing to learn and get my feet wet, in this game, and really, just try to soak up as much information and just learn all the ropes and yeah, just glad to be here, really be around the individuals that, can teach me and, develop a mindset, to get to the best I can.
Thank you, Josh. JP, any chance we can see your face for a few minutes? I know that you're an old friend of General Brave, but if we could see you and introduce yourself to the project.
Yeah, sorry. Give me a couple minutes, and I could put my camera on. But yeah, nice to see you again, General Bray. I'm JP. I've been working under Kevin for the past like 2 years, as an apprentice, and I'm an inspiring actor. But under Kevin's wing, I've been learning the behind the scenes on how to actually produce a film together, and I've been actually working with Kevin on this Victory by Valor project, for the past 2 years, and it's been really exciting and awesome to see it, from coming from the ground up. And I'm just excited for the opportunity to actually see it come to light. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, JP. Damone, can we see you? If not, can you introduce yourself because you've been on this for about 2 years also, Victory by Valor.
Hello, I'm Damone. I'm a recent graduate of California State University Northridge, and like Kevin said, I've been working with him and JP in several projects for the past couple of years. I've
Okay. Well, thank you guys. Even though we don't see your faces, we hear your spirit. So I invited General Bray because he's been kind of my spiritual compass for how I can take anything I do with the U.S. Armed Forces and share it with a civilian audience. And in particular, people who are young folks who may not have a opportunity to really understand what Victory by Valor and all of the things that For Love of Liberty have done to create storytelling opportunities for people like myself. General Bray really has a unique perspective on being a warrior and a civilian consultant. So I've asked him to come on and kind of share with you some of the tenets of what Victory by Valor could be for you guys as creative producers to help understand how we can take some of these individuals as well as just the narrative and be able to, as General B always asks, so what? Why would anybody care about this project? And that's what it is. I think all of us have to try to share with our audience and with all the people who might be, again, the targeted consumers of this information. So, General Bray, if you can, just introduce yourself, background, and any context you can provide.
Give me a second, guys. I've got my bride coming out. I'm bringing her out the hospital, so this is going to be interesting. Stand by.
Okay. Right. And guys, I'm going to do a little bit more screen sharing. This is going to give you guys an opportunity to look at some of the documentation. Okay, I don't think it's going to work with the PowerPoint. So let me stop screen share. Anyway, you guys are going to get this document because it'll have a lot of the things that are going to be part of the production list of things that we're going to have to pull together before we even do principal photography. Does anybody have any questions, suggestions, or comments thus far?
This is going to be a very interesting moment because for two reasons. One is my bride just got in, and the timing could not be more strange. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to try to be quick because she's been out, hasn't eaten in about 13 hours. So I know she wants a bite, and I'll make that come to pass. So let me do this for you all and make it real quick. One, this is everything starts with return on investment and interest. And from the Department of Defense, this being able to tell her story is a recruiting tool for everybody. And recruiting starts with just exposure. It doesn't have to do anything. You have to recruit if you have a great project, a product. You don't have to recruit. You expose, but you expose it from a perspective of those who might be interested. So to the question that or comment that was made by Kevin, unique perspective. Remember, America's Army is America's Army. It is really about the nation. And you know, you've seen Be All You Can Be, all those commercials, and people focus on the fact that these people are going to be soldiers. No, what they're really going to be is they're going to be they're going to be people who are doing something to continue the American way of life. And some of them join for the valor, the adventure, and some actually join because they use one.
General Bray, you're on mute. Okay.
Their interest and skill. Now, at the end of the day, they become warriors, and they learn an incredible amount about themselves and capability. The United States Army today is an $800 billion direct influence component. If you believe a dollar spends 18 times, that means that roughly 14 to 16 trillion dollars is generated within that system and within America and the world from the DoD. So why should you care? You should care because it's a business. It's a business and part of the business, and it touches in all ways. Now, to the people who are part of Victory by Valor, they have a duality of purpose, and specifically these individuals were fighting within a system that at one time rejected them. They were being questioned about capability to fight, willingness to fight, and willingness to lead. And all the ones that we're talking about also exhibited an element of discipline that was absolutely refined by the United States, demonstrated within that context, and then was leveraged to be game changers for the world and the nation. And so it was their valor as a service person and their willingness to withstand all of the challenges in order to be champions. And in being champions in their sport without the blemishes of personality and character, they opened the door. They weren't, if the ones that were cited, they weren't just a token. They became the pinnacle and a wedge for others to follow. More specifically, they fought not just within the uniform, they fought without the uniform, and they touched America. And even those who didn't care for the military had to cheer them on. So that's the victory that they really achieved. The valor that they showed wasn't necessarily on the combat field. It was on the humanity field, on America's stage, on the brightest stages, that part of us that, because all Americans love to compete. We always cheer a champion. And these champions knew that when they got on the podium, they had to do a little more. They had to do a little more than everybody else. And so you get to tell the story. And I would tell each of you, I would ask you to push back on the military theme. Push back on it. And start to say, why do I care? And then think about a client that you're pushing something forward and say, why should they care? Why should they care? And so if you're DOD, that's the easy one. I tell you, it's a recruiting tool for them to go and push forward, to go and tell that story. anyhow. So that's what I would offer to you, and I would tell you that there's so much more, and each of them has a drill down story. Each person has a drill down story. You know, you got a person, you know, and by the way, athletes want to naturally stand on the podium and then be challenged from the podium. All these athletes had to show a level of humility that was in many ways counter to their personality, in fact, counter to the personality of a top tier athlete. If you watch even, let's use Tom Brady as an example. His first championship, he was the most humble guy around because he knew he was a 5th round draft choice and he won a Super Bowl, and he was humble. He was talking about how we don't talk like that. We don't do those things. But by the time he really knew that he was actually in the conversation for being a GOAT, the GOAT of football, changed personalities. Why do I use him? Because now we'll give you the contrast. We have Cam Newton, by far the most gifted, probably most gifted athlete to play the game of football. He will never get his due of the athlete that he's supposed to be because the game allowed them to beat him up, to hit him in ways that would have had most men crying, putting their tail between their legs and running. But he knew who he was, and he was in a day and age he would not have been a person to do victory by valor, because he would have been thrown out the game, would have been hurt on purpose more than he already was, because they could have done it legally, and they'd have just called him incapable. But we used those other players. You know, we talk about one of the great leaders of the Victory by Valor movement, if you will, was Jackie Robinson. He was not the best baseball player. The best baseball player would have been Josh Gibson or Satchel Paige. Those would have been the top tier. Now that's some more. My father-in-law played for the old Negro League Yankees. But the problem is, Josh was a drinker. Okay, they would have picked on him all day long. Satchel Paige was a rookie sensation in 1926, 22 years before Jackie. Think about that. And he then played as a pitcher in the 1960s for the Yankees. Wow. But so his age would have been picked on. Jackie had been court-martialed, and they saw his ability to hold his composure when things weren't equal, and they knew what he had to deal with. And they said, Branch Rickey said, yep, this guy can do it. He can withstand the slings and arrows that are going to come at him. So the story each of you tells should first start with you asking yourself the why question. Why do I personally care? And then why does my client care? And let me tell the story from that perspective so I can capture those pieces. The data you collect right now just helps you choose which parts you want to emphasize and the drill down of their lives, of a particular life that you want to get to tell your story. And keeping in mind your audience, your client, and you.
Wow.
I hope that helps. If not, I'm going to answer questions.
No, it does. It does. And I have somebody on the line. I don't know if he can speak. I can't see his face. But Jay Tucker, this is the milestone because this is the first time that I've had Jay and General Bray on the same call about this topic. They've been on several calls before, but never about the warrior athlete or the military warrior athlete. And Jay or Frat, can you speak a little bit about your perspective of what victory by valor could mean to you?
Happy to. So the two pieces, right? So the first is that there's this incredible legacy for particularly people of color and their involvement in the military, that speaks to a true love of this country and speaks to the complicated history that Black Americans have with our experience in the US, right? And the people who are best able to tell that story, unfortunately, are getting to an age where they won't be able to tell that story much longer. So when we talk about what happened with the Tuskegee Airmen, or what happened with the Buffalo Soldiers, or what happened with our Vietnam vets, and so forth, these are stories that, and first person accounts that will become more and more precious as time goes by. And so there's this opportunity right now to leverage the technology we have to capture and preserve, to share those stories, to index those stories, to make them accessible to future generations. But also, this is a community where we are cultural leaders as well. And so, from a storytelling perspective, from a pop culture perspective, from an awareness raising perspective, this is a culture that generates the styles, the ideas, the moments that people follow and talk about, across American popular culture. And so, from that point of view, when we talk about the history, the sacrifices, the struggles of these folks, if we can do that in our own unique way, there's a tremendous opportunity for us to um, reach more people and help people understand so much about U.S. history, about our roles with the military, and so on. Now, that being said, I think you heard General Bray talk about some of the specific athletes who have had a unique relationship with um, the US military and have leveraged some of those experiences to help them be successful and to withstand some of the scrutiny and challenges they had, on the athletic side. And there's an opportunity there to also show the ways in which um, that training, that orientation, that experience helped them survive and thrive in life after the military, right? So I think that there's a lot there to talk about. There are a bunch of inspirational stories, and there's this kind of, human development tree that goes from people who had experiences in the military and then led to either their success or the success of people they mentored, right? We can talk about some famous music groups as well as these athletes, right? We can talk about some of these athletes who went on to coach and so on, right? The military has been, a crucible for a number of folks who have made massive impact on their sports or industries and on future generations. So there's no time like the present to try to build out infrastructure, projects, and content that tell that story and make it available for the future.
Great, Jay. And really what I have for the time we have remaining, I believe JP is the only person that on this call. We have several people who could not make the call today, and I wanted these people as would-be producers. They're not working on this as production assistants. They're working on this project as producers assistants or associate producers. So one of the people I wanted you to meet, the gentleman by the name of Sergio Vincenti, and he comes by the way of Andrea Berry. So Sergio, if you can, again, this is a very important person that you need to know. So please introduce yourself and how you know Andrea. You're muted.
Yes, sir. You guys hear me now?
Yes.
All right. So yes. So actually, yes, Andrea Berry was who brought me to the project. I've known Andrea my entire life. She and my mother actually have been working in television together they started together literally the first day they worked together. And so Andrea is actually essentially my godmother. But once I started getting into media, she started working with the PFL. When the PFL, the Professional Fighters League, that's with ESPN right now, one of the largest MMA promotions. They just bought Bellator. And when she was a consultant on that project, when they were first getting together, and she asked me to actually help her with MMA because I was actually competing within combat sports MMA at the time, and with that and her influence, that's what actually really propelled me into media. And ever since then, which was actually about 2016, I have not only had my own show, not only worked as a combat sports journalist, I've also again worked as a political correspondent for the Chicago Tribune, the Chicago Reader. I've been on multiple of their radio shows and podcasts there. I have also, since I've been here, I've been working with the as a director's assistant and a producer for a multiple part documentary series on reparations funded by the state of California. So she has helped obviously propel me into this space. But yeah, Andrea is somebody who is family to me. In fact, her son is graduating high school tomorrow, and I'll be at the house celebrating with them. So yes, I am, you know, you know, tight knit with her and her family, but she's someone who really does inspire me daily. And when I'm, especially,
Uh-oh,
Lost your audio there for a sec.
Sergio, yeah. Okay, yeah, you're not muted, but we lost your audio, Sergio.
Can you hear me now? I'm sorry about that.
Okay, yeah, we lost the last part of it. But yeah,
Yeah.
man, I think Jay, in return, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Because I don't think anybody but JP and General Brain know who you are.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm one more thing. I'm sorry, Jay. Did Kevin call you frat before
Yes.
you?
Yeah.
And I'm also a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. Just
Well, 06.
yes.
Okay. So
So I run the Center for Media, Entertainment, and Sports at UCLA's Business School. And so in that capacity, what's been really cool for me over the last 7.5 years or so is that it's given me an opportunity to really connect with and build with lots of folks working across the entertainment industry, whether that's filmed entertainment, sports, interactive entertainment, video games, stuff like that, music, and so on. Um, and really, my interest and focus has always been around technology and innovation and how those impact the industry. But I recognize that another piece of the pie that's important to me is the people. Um, so much happens because of good leadership or not so good leadership. So much has to do with, the way in which people create and the connection to fans and audiences and consumers and so on. That it really truly is the business, right? So whether we're talking about culture, diversity and inclusion, leadership and decision making, the use of data and analytics, et cetera, like all that stuff is really stuff that gets me interested and excited. And I've been collaborating with Kevin for probably the last 12 years or so, going back to when I was working at a similar center at USC that focused on really technology, telecommunications, and media. And back then, I founded a thing called Silicon Beach at USC, which was this experience that had a conference focused on entertainment and digital and startups and so on, but also had a pitch competition where we gave away $50,000 a year to the top folks, to $25,000 first prize, 15 for second place, 10 for third place. So it's kind of like Shark Tank. So we did that for about 5 years, actually the 5 years before I jumped to UCLA. And over here, I host a couple of big conferences, one on sports, one on entertainment, but we also have, I don't know, 15 courses for MBAs focused on the business of entertainment, another 4 or 5 courses in the summer for our undergraduates. There's a pre-college program for high school students. I mentor a couple of our student clubs for undergrads and MBAs, have some relationships with organizations around town, Women in Film, the Costume Designers Guild. I sit on a couple of boards. There's a board game organization called Gaming Pathways, which is trying to help young people, particularly from underserved communities, get into the creation and marketing of board games, and a bunch of other stuff. An organization called Plenty of Pie, which is like an incubator on the entertainment side, and so on. So, I try really hard to use the space that I'm in as a way to build some bridges and make connections so that this next generation of pop culture creators looks more like our community, and is a little bit more democratic in terms of like who actually gets, their opportunities and stuff like that. So that's me.
wow, Jay, well put. And so what I'm doing right now is I'm trying to organize a run of show for a June 10th meeting with DoD and Microsoft. And Jay's been really skilled in helping me make sure that the narrative for the meeting becomes how do we find the people to recruit for the meeting who have an interest in helping us fund all of the cost of putting a great show on. And all of that is really what I'm going to be looking for all of you guys to do, is to help us build either a pitch deck or assets that we can showcase to DoD and Microsoft executives, so that they understand that all we're really looking at at this point is just the gasoline in the tank, so that we can drive this thing around town and, basically, do a roadshow to make this thing an evergreen project. I've asked General Bray, he came on, Jay, to talk a little bit more about the client DoD and how this can be contextualized in a way where they understand that this is their story, but it's really America's story. It's not just the DoD. And he asked us to have a pushback on the military and really talk about this from a standpoint of as individual producers, and what this could mean to us to take individuals in this timeline and make these people folks that we can not just memorialize as Hall of Fame athletes or military warriors, but people that we need to share and more importantly, give them their flowers before, like Willie Mays is the only person in this timeline, and David Robinson, who are still alive. Most of these people have been dead for centuries. I mean, for decades rather. Joe Louis, Sugar Ray Robinson, Willie Mays, Arthur Ashe, and who did I miss? Jackie Robinson. These 5 guys are my Mount Rushmore. Just off to the side, I've got David Robinson, because I think he can offer up as an officer. He's one of the.
Was Jesse Owens in the military?
No, he wasn't. But several people who were in the 1936 Olympics that won gold medals were. So I've cataloged the athletes by sport and by era, and I put together a tabletop book that's really like it's not like a pitch deck, but it's really like a concept brief on the who and why and how these people flow through the timeline. So
let me, if I may, I'm gonna step in for a second.
Sure, Joe Bray.
We're gonna need a better literature search, because many of the NFC champions from the 1960s and late 50s football, they were actually, some of them were active duty soldiers. Active duty soldiers. Rosie Greer was a soldier. So
NFL.
In other words, it's really important that we capture, that we frame this thing to some very specifics, because otherwise you might build something and leave somebody behind.
Yeah, Willie Davis. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot more research.
Willie Davis was absolutely on point, because and to be fair, I spoke with Rosie, Willie Davis, and these fellows, and I'll tell you the real a story that the DoD should be interested in that nobody has done. It's part of my spiels and speeches, but it's lost in history because, and by the way, it will help change the narrative, specifically the effects of Executive Order 9981, not in the way that you're thinking, meaning the services were integrated and there were those who fought to fight. We actually fought to fight harder after 9981, because the third part of that question, will they fight, can they fight, will they fight, and can they lead, did not come into play until the end of the Korean War and Vietnam. So many places, the African American service members rushed to combat, rushed to be soldiers. But as the war turned by people, the nation stopped drafting based upon capability. We started doing it based upon desire. We started allowing people to to join kind of if they wanted to, and if you found a way to get out of it, you could. For the first part of the war, we were still signing up to come in droves. So here's where the myth becomes that the Army was specifically picking us to serve disproportionate to our numbers. We were trying to be war fighters. My brother, who ended up being an avionics repairman because he'd been burned on his chest, tried to be an infantryman. He tried to be a grunt, but he's also smart as shit. So they wouldn't let him be an infantryman. It damn near broke his heart because we were of that age whereby our parents couldn't fight in the last big war. And oh, by the way, nobody ever talks about Task Force Smith in the Korean War in the right sensing. 5 years after, or actually, yeah, 5 years after the end of World War II, Task Force Smith was a black unit, still an all-black unit, ill-equipped, that caused part of the overrunning of Korea because we didn't outfit them. They even trained with sticks while they were on the Korean Peninsula. See, but we were trying to be war fighters. That story doesn't really get told. The nation's embarrassed by it, but the truth of the matter is the African Americans should be emboldened by it. So so again, who's the audience? The audience of this story ought to be the African American people who served and those who are trying to find their roots in this nation or that don't know they've got roots in this nation. That should be solidified. It's one of the sidelines in Love of Liberty, but it should be its own story, framed hard.
All right.
So anyhow,
Okay.
So then you can tell the story of the fact that one, we carried the fight for the first part of the Vietnam War as infantrymen. That's why you found those disproportionate numbers, but they're also disproportionately prepared.
Wow.
And if you go to the early years of the special forces, you will find that we had many African Americans in the special forces as soldiers, very few leaders. But we signed up for that kind of tough, challenging duty. And now those numbers today, when we have the option, are much less.
And General Bray, to punctuate that, Arthur Ashe's story really will shed some light on that. Arthur Ashe's brother was serving 2 terms when Arthur Ashe decided to go into the military, and he was able to do something to take his brother's part in not going to the military theater because he didn't want his brother in harm's way. So
my brother did it for my father to keep my stepfather from going back. And our neighborhoods. I mean, you can go into the story and tell the story from the neighborhoods, how we joined differently, disproportionately, to go ahead and make up for not having served. And then, oh, by the way, now you can start turning to the people that came out of that to start making their mark. You know, right. Jimi Hendrix is an airborne soldier. He was an airborne soldier. Now, that freedom, that boldness also emboldened him in a different way because he got exposed to some things that he should not have been with the maturity level just yet. But that's another story that you can save for his drill down. But the collective story, you start going into the creative minds, the business minds, the Bill Cosbys who served. And by the way, at all of your land grant colleges, I'm gonna say this again, this is important, every male student for their first 2 years took ROTC.
Mm.
See, this is the part that gets missed. And what that did was that changed our academic education requirements. It changed our discipline requirements. A lot of things were changed and influenced by. And you look at all these great examples. This is where you start to pull up the James Earl Joneses, the others who come out there with a whole level of diction, a whole different level of discipline, a whole different level of competitiveness, because they learned how to compete within the culture at which they have to compete and set the stage for the freedom of expression that has folks like you looking at reparations to think about what was missed by all those years.
Wow. Well, General
So
Bray,
yes.
I was going to say, I mean, there's a lot of things that we can compress into this meeting on June 10th, but I'd love to have you and Jay help us make sure that we have a runner show an agenda for June 10th. Because as Jay said, what's the use of talking to Microsoft and the DoD if we don't really set the point where they can understand that this is something that is valuable and worthy of not just investment, but ownership. And I want to challenge them by saying that if we have the right people on the call, to all raise their hand or keep their hand down if they don't think this is a project worthy of being able to move forward. And again, I know because of For Love of Liberty, and I'm not exactly sure how we can parlay what For Love of Liberty did as a product, but I think we can actually look at For Love of Liberty as a standard for which we can actually improve the distribution and the penetration of that story, of that project, not just to the commercial market, but in the schoolhouses and everywhere else to be evergreen. So that's what it is. I'm looking at the business case.
As Love of Liberty is considered a validated documentary by the United States Army and Air Force, it now helps complete your literature search because you can use it, the information from it, as part of a literature search, and you can use it as a foundational document that others can use as a platform for what's next.
Yeah.
And so you can reference it, and with the support of Frank Martin, you can probably even use excerpts from it to tell other parts of the story.
Correct.
So again, it might be a drill down if you're doing academic work like at the university with Jay. And by the way, 19 to all you guys out there that know how to answer with 06. But anyhow, you can go ahead and platform that piece out as well.
Right. And not to get too far away from Victory by Valor, but what Will Rowe and Victoria Bowens have asked me to do is to kind of coalition people around Executive Order 9981 and 9980 as an example of what we can do to create an evergreen project for the 75th anniversary all the way to the 100th year anniversary, is to bring in additional stories about women in the military. There were women in the military who athletes.
Don't convolute the story. Make them separate stories and a side note to complement each other, but don't try to drill down both simultaneously.
Absolutely, sir. That's what I need help with. I need help because they're trying to push the 68888, which is a great story and one that Tyler Perry has got a full feature-length film coming out on Netflix, but they're looking at that as the flag bearer right now for how to get diversity, women, and all of the things that have been left on the table for how we can, not only make this story more ingestive for an audience of people who probably would never even think that there's something in it for them, but I want to be able to say that there is only 2 women in Victory by Valor. They're both white women who served in the military who were also Olympic athletes. And so I want to use them as ways to, again, kind of extend beyond just the Black people who served, because there were people of Native American, Asian, Pacific Islander, and Latinx who are still part of this fraternity of people who served, but also were Hall of Fame athletes. So I don't know if that's something that's too far afield to bring in, more people under the tent. But just, again, looking at June 10th as a way to create a run of show is what I like to have you guys help me with, so that we have a crisp 45 minutes. The people that are going to be on the call from the Microsoft side, John Weiser, General Bray, you've talked to him, and you're bringing in the Jewish Holocaust. Was his interest in making sure that, again, we make this maybe a potential missing piece of the Shoah Foundation, and what they want to do for how this can contextualize World War II and some of the things they've done for that project. But also, how do we make this a focused project, but not make it so focused that we leave people that may have some energy or some power to make it a little bit more commercial for the whole, the whole pie. So just want to make sure that, we focus, but we still think about who else could be part of the unmet needs of this project. So
how many of these great visionaries we got on the net still? Have we lose anybody yet?
Not yet. I think we've got
right.
yeah, but JP I know is getting ready to leave. But yeah, go ahead, General Bray, take us home.
All right, listen up real quick. Victory by Valor, make sure you capture it in this sense. Victory by Valor, getting all of America's talents into the fight. So it's now specifically an all element game. I showed you once before, there's a thing called far recognition signals. It is your face, your complexion, it is your gender, your age, your name, and your accent. Those are things that before you ever tell somebody about yourself, they make overt assertions of who you are and what they think of you. And America is powerful because of its global occupation and global nation and it being a global nation ideology that ties us together. It is not our language. It is not our religion. It is not our faith, other than the faith that there is a supreme being. That's in our Constitution. Ma'am? We just had somebody try to get in our car by accident. An older woman. So it was interesting. I watched her around. Yeah. So this is this idea that by giving access to our nation's defense, we became stronger. And now you start to do macro drill downs. If you're looking at it, you see flashes of all of those elements to make sure you let color, gender, and all those things show in your, like a Marvel comic book. You know, when a Marvel movie comes on, you flash all those things. And then as you tell the story, you now start to tell each of those stories in stovepipe fashion where they went to. Now, the 6888 was one of your units, by the way. That's for women of color. But they set the platform for women, period. Because what they did was, it was a question whether or not these ladies could do the mail in a way that it was expeditious in taking care of the boys on the front. But not only did they do more than was expected, they did it more and faster. And they set the tune. They amplified what the Buffalo Soldiers and Tuskegee Airmen did. And more importantly, they also demonstrated the willingness of women, the capabilities of women. And it's no accident that it was African American women, because they were already towing a heavy burden anyway. They've been trained to do that. But then they showed something else that was more special, that people had not seen what else they could do. So if you start taking these pipelines, you can turn it into each 3-5 minute snippets if you want to, with the single theme that they've made America stronger. They made America stronger, because then now you're talking to both sides of the aisle, and they'll listen. They'll listen. If we go down too many single threads, is there the Jewish component? You start talking about, you know, that 4x100 relay team, when they scratched one of the black runners and put a Jewish leg in there. And that, in fact, technically in the World War II, there was a Jewish, in 1938 Olympics, it was a Jewish runner that they subbed in for the other black runner.
Right, 36.
Because he was faster. He was faster. But because we tried to placate Hitler, he got smoked by 4 black guys. That was like a double insult. So we show those things, we highlight them, and we emphasize it was the strength of the nation. And you show this, and again, who do you give this to? This is the one with the recruiting tool. It's a recruiting tool for the government, for the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps. But to be fair, Marine Corps and Navy didn't get the memo until after World War II. Okay, but we focus on service and servicemen and women, and then you can bring in the Bashirs and guys like him later on.
Okay.
To show what he, because you got them, but you could, and you pull those pieces out there to show again, and again, it's always been there, but the service is what allowed us to pull these things to the forefront. All right, I'm done.
Okay, great. Well,
so,
great.
so,
I
so
think
Kevin,
everybody's
you
out of
got all
time.
that?
Yeah,
You got
I
all
did.
that? So
I recorded this.
so-
I recorded this. This call's been
Okay,
recorded.
so the 1-2 punch, first part, General Bray said 2 things. First, he gave you the specific stories of a lot of people, which is great, but he also told you that you need to do a little bit more homework to make sure you're not missing people that might be compelling in that conversation. And because what you want to do is have like a tight 3, meaning you want to be able to say in 3 minutes, imagine these stories and what they would do. The second piece you need to make sure is prepared for that conversation is the work product, right? Because if you're going to be asking people to support it, give you the resources to produce it, then you need to tell them what it is. So yes, the stories, and also this is what we're going to do with them, and this is what we're trying to create, and this is how you all can get involved in the kind of support we need. So that all, you got a tight 5 with that. So that however long that conversation goes, that in 8 minutes, you can get out both what you're the opportunity and the ask before you lose people's attention, before people get distracted, right? So you got to take everything that General Bray has been saying really over the last 40 minutes and condense that into like 3 minutes. It doesn't mean that you don't keep all that other stuff in your back pocket. And the rest, everybody who's on that call may share specific incidents, anecdotes, and so on as it comes up in Q&A and the back and forth. But you need to you need to basically create a headline that sets the stage and really creates the anticipation and the desire, right? So people can imagine the impact of the story that you'd like to tell, right? And then with that, okay, well, how are we going to tell it? What do we need? What is this going to look like? What is it going to be? And if you can do that in less than 10 minutes, then you have plenty of time for those people to talk to you about how they can get involved, what would be involved, what they would have to do, or what steps they would have to go through in order to be able to support you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you actually make progress in the meeting as opposed to waiting until after the meeting to, try to get that progress done and follow up. Because in my experience, when it moves to email, stuff gets real, real slow, right? So you need to be able to pull this off in 8 to 10 minutes.
Right. So we have 9 days to try to get an 8-minute to 10-minute piece that Microsoft, through the Microsoft Teams meeting, that they can play and share screen at the top of the agenda. So everybody knows
Well,
what
but
it
not
is.
even. If it's something that you want to play without any interaction, that needs to be 2 minutes or less.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I'm saying that your presentation, your pitch is 8 to 10 minutes. You understand? And the 3 minutes that I was talking about is setting the table and letting people see the power of these stories, right? What's in it for them? Why does it matter? What does it mean? Who are the people? How do their stories reflect the American story? All the stuff that General Bray talked about, you need to be able to get that done in 3 minutes ish, right? If you're talking about producing a clip of something that people would see, that needs to be 2 minutes or less. That needs to be like a trailer or a sizzle reel. Can't be, again, like you have maybe 10 minutes in that meeting for exposition, right? Like when you watch, one of my favorite movies is the first Matrix movie. One of my least favorite movies is the second one. And the reason I say that is that in the second movie, at the climax of the movie, there's a conversation between the main character and his adversary that goes for like 10 minutes where they explain the whole movie instead of just showing me. Right? And that's exactly what we want to avoid. If you want to show like a demo or a sizzle, it's got to be short. What you're pitching has to be short. Let those people drive the conversation after you've set the table, right? So you can answer their questions and then talk about next steps. Do not spend the whole meeting presenting to them and talking at them, because essentially, you've heard from General Bray the stuff that you're going to talk about. If they're not on board in the first 30 seconds, they're just not on board.
Right. Okay, so Jay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you an agenda template. I'm going to show you some of the pieces that we've done 2 minutes or less thus far, and see if those even qualify for being sizzle reel material. But what we're going to do in the next 9 days is to try and take these young people on the call, because we have now some really top camera equipment, and see if we can do some interviews with people like yourself and General Bray. Well, we can't do General Bray physically, but love to be able to get,
I know it wouldn't be easy, but really, you want to get to David Robinson, even if it's low quality video, or Rachel Robinson,
yes,
right? You don't want to be like, what am I going to say about this story? I haven't served. I'm not, like you can say that, oh, well, this is a dude who does A, B, and C. But really, if you're going to, like, in your 2 minute video, that needs to be General Bray. That needs to be, athletes or their loved ones. That needs to be like, you need
right.
to show the thing, not show people talking about the thing. You have us in the meeting.
Okay, so we have a piece where we have unlicensed material from HBO with Rachel Robinson, David Robinson. All of these people, HBO have done a documentary on each one of them, and the sound bites from these people are priceless. They're platinum. And so now we need to stitch these things together in a 2 minute piece, is what you're really trying to say, is to get the folks who can actually speak on behalf of the people who've passed away, including Willie Mays. We've got the documentary that the HBO did on Willie Mays, and it really then allows us to try and get some understanding of what the lightning rod is and what more could be done if we had more resources, more funding, and more time.
Yes. So I want you to be careful. If you're going to do a sizzle reel from other people's work, be real careful about relying on, especially in a short video, it needs to be a montage from many different sources and from many different studios and many different distribution platforms. Because if I saw a sizzle reel where half the stuff was from HBO, I'd be like, well, why am I not messing with HBO?
Right.
Or if half the stuff is from ESPN, I'd be like, well, why am I not messing with, like, what are y'all, why are you coming to me? These cats have already done it. Right. So if you want to pull, if you want to do it by pulling content from existing sources, that's fine. I'm sure there's a ton of stuff also in the Library of Congress, and there are a bunch of other pockets of interviews and information and stuff like that. But I would recommend, if you can't get access to the athletes themselves, then think about what you can do with your team with some man on the street stuff, right? You
Right.
ask people, well, tell me more about what do you know, somebody on the street, what do you know about, Jackie Robinson? What do you know about Willie Mays? What do you know about, like you said, you got your Mount Rushmore. So then ask people to, young folks, old folks, men, women, whatever. Like, what do you know about those people? What do you think of when somebody says that name? What does it mean to you? What does it mean to the culture? Have you even heard? Like some people might say, "Who's Jackie Robinson?" Which is a response. But like to stitch that stuff in with whatever else, if you can't get your own original conversations with some of these people, I don't know if Elgin Baylor's still alive. There
No,
are
he
other
died.
folks that
Yeah,
are.
he died. So great point is that I think we can do some man on the street sound bites from people. And interestingly enough, I went to a Mitchell and Ness,
Mhm.
yeah. So the young man that was running the store for his father, I asked him, "Do you have a Willie Mays jersey?" And he says, "Well, who's that?"
Right.
So right, so that's the kind of thing that we want to be able to tell people. Did you know? You
Yeah.
don't? Well, let me tell you more. Okay, that
Yeah.
type of thing.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Okay.
that kind of stuff, right? So
Okay.
so anyway, I know we're way over time, but that's it. And again, what do I know? I'm just one voice of the people that are in your
Well,
circle, Kevin. There may be other people that also have perspectives and expertise, but you got to lean on General Bray 100%. He's that dude, and you got to tighten up the story and figure out, like, if you're going to do some kind of sizzle or trailer, how you can get as much original stuff into your sizzle that shows your point of view and your unique spin. And then if you're going to borrow from some of these other things, you got to diversify so that people don't just say, "Oh, I'm going to go back to ESPN's 30 for 30 or to HBO or whatever." Like, it's got to, you have to do it in such a way that people see that your editorial skills are more important than the kind of source material that already exists or the creative teams that have already gone down this path.
got it. Got it. We've given us a great, a bit of things to think about, but this has been recorded, and we've got probably another 10 people who aren't on this call who want to be creative producers and want to give everybody a chance to come up with something that's a sound bite from them, the young people, to talk
Mhm.
about why they would be involved in this project and why it's important for them to be able to have some point of view about things like what is valor, what is service, what is even victory to them in
Right.
today's world with all the
Yeah.
things that are happening. What do they think these things are? So
Yeah.
again, thank you, Jay. Thank you, Jen O'Bray. Thank you, Sergio. Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Damone. Thank you, JP. This has been great. This is going to give me a little bit more work to do over the weekend, but I'll put together an agenda template so we can get tighter for June 10th. Thank you, guys.
Love it.
Hey,
Be
hey,
fine.
Sergio, do you know Ruby? What's Ruby? The honeybee from Chicago.
I do not personally know.
Okay, all right. Have you heard the name before?
Ruby, no, it doesn't sound familiar, to be fair.
She was on WGN for many years, but she's still kind of
Oh,
one
you
of the
see
biggest.
Ruby
Yeah,
D?
and not the Ruby D. It's something D, the honeybee. She was a huge player in a lot of the Chicago scene, especially on WGN. And I think she retired in 2013 or 14, but she
It
was
doesn't.
at, you could see her. Well,
It doesn't
I
come
just,
up,
I
but you
just
know
saw,
what? I bet you if I looked her up real quick, I'm sure if I saw the face, it
yeah,
probably like pop
just
up.
look up the honeybee of WGN. Hey, look, to everybody, hey guys, I applaud you. Now put on your, as Jay said, put on your creative hats and start asking yourself the question. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you. Thanks,
Okay. Thank
Kevin.
you, guys. Thank
Right.
you.
Have a
All
good
right.
one, y'all.
All right
Goodbye.
now.
All right,
Thank
guys.
Bye.
you very much. Yes, take care.